We've been talking about Christ's last messages that he gave before he was arrested. Last week we talked about him preparing, sending out his disciples to prepare for the Passover feast that they were going to have together. The question was asked last week about what time of year this happened, and of course I didn't remember quite sure. But I thought I was right, but I wasn't quite sure. The Passover is sometimes from mid-February to mid-March, during that time period, based on the calendars and the lunar cycles and all that kind of stuff. So the Passover each year was going to be in the spring, which would be our early springtime, and that's about when our Easter time for this country that celebrates that, and parts of the world that celebrate that. But that question was asked, and I wanted to make sure we had that right last week. Can y'all hear me okay? Is it coming through? Okay. Everybody remembers Muhammad Ali, the boxer? Yeah. What was his favorite term that he used? I am the greatest, right? He would stand up, he would stand over his, especially the guys he knocked out, and he would shout, I am the greatest. Or anytime he did interviews, he said, I'm the greatest. There's a story that he got on an airplane one time, had to go travel to where he was going, and the stewardess reminded him to put a seatbelt on. He said, Superman does not need a seatbelt. I am the greatest. She goes, Superman also could fly. So he wasn't the greatest like he thought he was. Of course, that was a term that he used to promote himself with, and he got into his other opponents' heads probably greater than any other fighter could do. And that gave him a huge advantage in the ring. All of us, if we get distracted on what our mission is or what we're to do, it is very difficult to do a very good job, isn't it? If we're at home, a lot of people are working now from home, and they're trying to do their work, and just anything, a phone call happens, or there's something that you know is on the calendar is coming up, you just get distracted too easy. In classrooms, kids learn real quick which teachers can be so distracted so quick that they could get them off task and they wouldn't have to do the work that they were supposed to be doing. So I was not one of those. Very, very rarely I got off task. If it pertained to part of the lesson that we're working on, yeah, we would talk about some of that stuff. But a lot of times the student would ask a question totally out of left field. I said, that's not on lesson today. Let's get back to the lesson. And they figured out pretty quick. I didn't fall for that trap a whole lot. Because lesson plans were very strict and were very, looked at very close to our administrators, so we had to be careful about that. Today,
it's harder with adults.
Not too much. So I'm more tactful with adults than I was with students. I'll put it that way. Luke 22 is where we're going to be at today. Turn to Luke. This is during the time he is set down with his disciples. They are in that upper room at the Last Supper. And this is going on. And there's a few things that happened. And the reason I started the lesson with I am the greatest, because that's a question that's about to come up. If somebody in Luke, if they would, start back in Luke 22 and read from verse 20 to 30. Luke 20 to 30. It's going to kind of set the stage of what's happening going on here. Luke 22 and verse 20 down to verse 30.
Likewise also the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you.
Okay, he just gave the instructions on the Lord's Supper. And then look what happens.
But behold, the hand of him that betrays me is with me on the table. And truly the Son of Man goeth, as it was determined. But woe unto that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to inquire among themselves, which of them it was that should do this thing.
All right, let's stop right there for a second. Can you place yourself there at that table when he just told somebody of the 12 that was going to betray him, was going to sell him out, was going to do the things that he had been telling them over and over and over? Can you imagine the conversations that went on? It ain't me. If you sat around with 12 friends of yours and you accused or told one of them you were going to do this, usually somebody's going to speak up real quick. It ain't me. It's not going to be me. I can't do that. And the other would say, well, Don't be looking at me. It's not me. They just keep pointing fingers at each other. They believed Jesus in what he was saying, that he was going to be betrayed. But that conversation got pretty heated. It had to have gotten pretty heated. And you can tell why it went into the very next verses that we're going to read about, why it escalated into the next set of explanations by the apostles. Continue, please, 24.
And there was also a strife among them about which of them should be accounted the greatest. And he said unto them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. But you shall not be so. But he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief, as he that does service. For whether is greater, he that sitteth at meat, or he that serves it? Is not he that sitteth at meat, but I am among you as he that serves. Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations, and I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father has appointed me, that ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel.
All right, he's told them over and over and over what it's going to cost them to follow him, right? Everybody agree with that? He's told them what it's going to cost them. They didn't really understand at the time, but they started seeing some of their fellow Christians that's following Jesus. Some persecutions have started, and they were at times persecuted a little bit. Not too bad, not to the point where they would fall away. But he also kept telling them, you will receive that crown of life. You will receive that great reward that I'm telling you if you'll just hang in there and do the things I tell you to do. What is a benefactor? It's talking about the Gentiles, those that had the leadership, and it just wasn't the Gentiles either, but he calls out the Gentiles. They're called benefactors. You know what that means, to be a benefactor?
To be a help aid.
Not quite. Right the opposite. It's right the opposite. It's those people that think that because of their position, they should receive the kind of gratitude, the kind of, how did they put it? It says, the title suggests that the people should be grateful for their leadership and should recognize their power of authority. Do we have those in our positions of authority today or in leadership today?
Yes.
Just because I hold this position, I should be thought of and I should be treated a certain way. I have seen so many videos online that y'all getting dripped on. Sorry, the condensation is. You walk outside, your glasses just fog over. We've got those that have been stopped. Say I'm a deputy sheriff or I am a DA of some county or someplace else, and they think they're entitled. Right? That's another term that you could put here as a benefactor. They believe they're entitled to these things just because of the position they hold. How dare you stop me? And I've seen them just go off on the officers that's doing their job. It happened to my son one time. And he was in security forces in Minot, North Dakota, on a nuke base up there. And he was having to do his part of patrol. He stopped the base commander's wife for speeding through a school zone. Which, should she have known better? It's a school zone where kids are. Everybody knows you don't speed through a school zone, especially when you know there's a police officer sitting there. Well, he stopped her. I think he wrote her a ticket, did he? Yeah, I think he wrote her a ticket. Boy, she went ballistic on him. How dare you stop me? Don't you know who I am? It makes no difference. Matter of fact, they're supposed to be setting the kind of examples, and that's what we're told in leadership positions, especially in the church. You better be setting examples for people, not be a stumbling block for some people. So I don't know. I don't remember what. Amy could probably tell me if he got any. I think he got a reprimand for doing it. I can't remember. I just talked to him. But I do remember when it happened because he said, Dad, I think I messed up. I said, no, son, you didn't. If you did what was right, you didn't mess up. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, I think we think of the word benefactor as being someone who gives to a cause or somebody who heads up that good cause. They're a benefactor because they donated to it. But I think in this, you're talking about that they think because.
Exactly, because of their position. They are entitled. And that's exactly what he's talking about. But what does he say here about you? He says, how does he put it? It is not he. Oh, no, excuse me. Did I miss it?
You're talking about 26?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, 26. But not so among you. It's not, you're not getting one of these. As one of my followers, they could have easily used that position, knowing who his closest in circles were, to get all these perks, I guess you could call it, what we would call it today, to get these perks. But he said, not you. You're not. You're going to be a servant. Anybody in here ever served in the restaurant business as a server? Best tables are served. I feel for those people that do that, because a lot of times you'll be, even today, we'll go, even if you go today, you may hear somebody complain to a server, and sometimes very, very rudely, that it's their fault that their food didn't taste right. It was their fault that the plates came out late. It was their fault they couldn't get a table. That server is just serving you. But yet, that's the person they can see and talk to, so they take it out on them. Same idea of the person that's the cashier at a supermarket or something that comes through. I've seen people just go off on them, and they have absolutely nothing. A lot of times they have no clue what the person's talking about. People in a service business take a lot of abuse. They just do. I know a man that raised his entire family, 16 children, as a janitor at the school. I knew him all my life. And about half of my teaching career, he was there also doing service for me.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Mr. Jeffrey. You knew exactly what I'm talking about, Mr. Arcade. And he made sure even the people that worked under him did a very, very good job. And he warned them at times, remember, your job is to do this, not to tell other people how to do things. But those people that, y'all seen that show, the Dirtiest Jobs? I think it's a video, a TV show. And some of those things you just about can't hardly watch, of what some people's jobs are. There's jobs that several of you would never even think about taking. I don't care what they offered you. You're just not going to do that. You're not going to put yourself in that situation. But Christ here said here, what? You're to be in service of your fellow man. How did that discussion about who was going to be betraying Jesus escalate into those who is the greatest? How did he get there? It's in the same conversation that's going on. And we'll find out next week that they didn't even realize Jesus pointed out who it was going to be, and they didn't even catch it because they were arguing among each other. And I often wondered that until I studied this here. They were so busy arguing with each other, they didn't even see what Jesus was saying or who he was pointing out was going to betray him. Because that betrayer got up and left, and they didn't even think anything about it. So how did it escalate from just him telling, one of you here is going to betray me, to who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom?
Thinking I'm better than that person. It's not going to be me. I'm going to be.
Exactly. I'm going to be much, much better. No, well, I'm going to be better than you. And then it gets into, I've got to be the best, because if it was Peter by far, I think, did more, it looked like, than a lot of the other apostles did. He was so concerned about Jesus and his safety that he did a lot of different things. And we know what he did in the garden. Pulled that knife out and even was using the knife, a weapon, to defend Jesus. He was ready to give his life. I'm pretty sure, I no doubt, that he was ready to give his life, because those were armed guards. And he was one person. But he was willing to lay his life down then. I can see how this escalated real quick from, if you watch kids argue, you know, I'm better at you at this. No, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you at this. And it just keeps on escalating and escalating up. And that's what happened. So what did Jesus have to do to be verse 26, what does it say? To be one of the greatest, you have to have humility, and you have to have selflessness in your life.
The meek shall inherit the earth.
Exactly. What does it mean to be humble? To show humility toward others.
Putting someone before you.
Putting yourself lower. I don't care if it's if you've got lots of responsibilities. I've seen some very, very good administrators that showed this. They would go out and do things for their teachers out of their way. That's not really in their job description. They just want to show that I'm here for you. It's my job to make sure you've got what you need to do. But I've seen some also go right the opposite that is going right now. I'm in charge here. I'm the one. You're going to come and you're going to show me all the respect. And of course, they've already lost it by that time. We've all seen them. We've all bosses we've worked for that could not be humble in any way. But Jesus said, if you're going to be one of mine, you're going to have to learn to be humble. You're going to have to lower yourself, your status. Most of us have had children. And you get a child that gets sick, and they make a mess. They just do when they're sick. A lot of the dads I've known could not change a diaper. They would just almost die. But I changed lots of diapers. Lots of diapers. I wouldn't change to say that I wasn't at home as much as my wife was with my children, but if my child needed to change a diaper, I'd go change the diaper. No big deal. I have also done things for adults that most people will not do. I've got some people in my family that would not help my dad at times. At times he needed some help. And you get elderly and you can't do for yourself. There are things that's just going to happen in life that you've got to take care of. You have lived, some of us have lived with people that are passing in the last hours of their life, or the last days of their life. It's not a pretty sight, folks. It's not. But you have to humble yourself, and you're going to do whatever you have to do that. And that's the idea of the humility that we have to have for others. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to say an example of that I carry as a sweet memory. The 17 years that I worked at the cafeteria, we were shorthanded on servers one day, and Pat, being the clerk, the superintendent, came from his office and come and stood on the line and served food with us.
Very, very good. Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's not my job. You know, I just have to deal with it. Do the best you can." So,
I know a young man that's looking for a job, and he found one, but it was something that was way below what he thought he should be able to do. And he's saying, I make more money than that, or I can do better than that. And a job is a job. If you're not working.
isn't that a lot of our people that won't work today?
When you can say, okay, I'm qualified to be this, but right now I'm going to have to be a lower thing. And it's hard for us to lower ourselves in that manner.
A lot of us sometimes have to take a position that we know is not what we train for or not what we want. But to get our foot in the door, you got to start somewhere and work your way up. You just do.
You'd be surprised how many times that job turns out to be something you thoroughly enjoy.
Exactly. I've heard a lot of people say that. I started this job, didn't think I was going to like it, and I wound up, this is what my lot in life. This is what I'm supposed to do. You know, I've seen that happen too. That's very much. Okay. So what did Jesus do to show them humility? Turn to Mark. Mark 9. It's not given to us here in Luke's account, but in Mark's account it is. In Mark 9, someone read 9:30 through 37 for me.
And they departed thence and passed through Galilee, and he would not that any man should know it. For he taught his disciples and said to them, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and after that he is killed, he shall rise the third day. But they understood not what saying, that saying, and were afraid to ask him. And he came to Capernaum, and being in the house, he asked them, what was it that you disputed among yourselves by the way? But they held their peace, for by the way they had disputed among themselves who should be the greatest.
That's good. This was not the first time at the Last Supper that they had disputed who was going to be the greatest, was it? They had done it once before in Mark 9. They had disputed about who was going to be the greatest, and shortly after this, one of the apostles, or two of the apostles' mother, came and asked them to, can my son sit on your right hand and your left hand? She wanted to elevate. What is it about wanting to elevate ourselves? Is there anything wrong with that to start with? To work your way up? It is not.
No.
But to hold the title, just to hold that title for our own self-esteem, for our own pleasure, for our own, I'm better than you, that's wrong. Very, very much wrong.
If
And I think we all do that from times. We got to be careful about that.
So that's the exact opposite of humility.
Exactly.
We have to remember they're still thinking his kingdom's going to be on the earth. They're still thinking very much in the carnal, the physical.
Exactly. And if Jesus is the new king, he's going to have people under him to help him. And they have seen their whole entire lives these people that held these high positions and the rewards they got, the money they got, the riches they got, that the being a benefactor of those, that the term that we looked earlier. They want that title. They want that feeling. It's good to get letters of recommendation or to be called out for something you did well. We like that, don't we? And it's okay. That's okay. But if that's what we live for, to be noticed and to be put out in front of people, our political world just stinks with that today. And that's the only word I can come up with. They all want to be, look at me, look at me, look at me. And when you have some of our political leaders today come on television and say, I am not going to do this because I'm much better than this. My position, I should be treated better than this. Well, I'm sorry, you're not. You're not any better than anybody else. Wasn't you an average person when you took this office, took this job, and some of the promises that you made? We've got to be careful about those things. So it has happened before. You've got to be of service. And it's not a reward for them. Who are we working for the reward for? Is it for ourselves? I taught a lot of years and trained a lot of kids and lots of things. It's nice if your kids can excel and win awards and stuff, but I very seldom I ever wanted in a picture with them. I didn't compete. I wasn't the one that did the actual thing. I didn't want to be that, and I still, to this day, when they want me in a picture with my group of kids, my shooting kids, I'm very reluctant to get in there. I didn't go out and shoot. We trained. I'm with you. I brought you here, but I didn't perform. It wasn't me.
You're a leader, though.
Well, but I didn't do it for me. But I also do know teachers that they will cover a kid up to get their face in the front of them.
Yeah.
You know, because they're wanting everybody in there. Hey, look what I've done. Look what I've done. Look what I've done. And we all know people like that. And that's not something that we need to be about at all. All right, so what did Jesus do? John 13. Turn to John. Oh, stop right here. No, go ahead. Let's go. I'm getting ahead of myself in my notes. John 13. So Jesus had to show them how to be humble. And it's one of the most degrading jobs a person could ever have, I think, even today, if you think about it. Someone read for me John 13, 1 through 20.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, and that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand, and that he was come from God and went to God, and he riseth from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that he poured water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter said unto him, Lord, dost thou have washed my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do you know not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter said unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. Ye are clean, but not all. For he knew who should betray him. Therefore he said, You are not all clean. So after he had washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done unto you? You call me Master and Lord, and you say, Well, for so I am. But if I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if you do them. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen. but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, you may believe that I am he. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that hath sent me.
Okay. What did Peter want done? What did Peter want Jesus to do? If you're going to wash my feet, you need to go ahead and do what? Wash my whole body. Wash everything. Well, Jesus said, you're clean. Why do I need to wash you again? Why was it so important to wash your feet? Especially if you're supposed to sit down and eat a meal.
Well, they sit down on the floor most of the
They
time.
sit down on pillows or reclined, and your feet are right up there in front of you. And it's very difficult to eat a meal with somebody with dirty feet. But of course, we know they wore sandal-like shoes. They didn't wear boots or covered clothes or socks like we did, like we do today. A foot washing was something very important to them, to be clean when you sit down, so I don't have to smell your feet. Y'all smell some people's feet, especially your kiddos have been out. I know when the band practices early in the morning, all their shoes are out on the back sidewalk. Amy remembers that. You could walk by the band hall building and smell those shoes out on the where they tried to keep, because they got wet every single morning. So everybody had a pair of shoes they could slip on. And I don't know how they did that either, because I'm not sure they dried out every day. They got rained on, I know that. But that is something that you just do. I've never had a manicure or pedicure. Some of you have. Some of you have had both. I don't know how those people do pedicures on people. I've seen some of the people walk into those places with those feet. I don't think I could touch your feet. Okay? And I'm not sure I want them to touch my feet at certain times. So we wash, we bathe. We're probably one of the few cultures in the world that bathe a lot. You go, they tell me you go to England and Italy and some of those places, and the body odor of people that you get in and close in elevators or on trains or something are just terrible. Because we're not used to that, are we? We're not used to that culture. I've talked to people that go to Africa on mission trips. Said, you better get yourself mentally ready to see some things that your culture just does not see. And you won't have to go to Africa. It's just in other places. There's some places in this country that you go that people are just not clean and don't clean themselves. Sometimes they don't have the facilities. Sometimes they don't have the water. It's just something that we don't do. Peter wanted him to wash his whole body. He said, I don't need to wash your body. You're clean. Let me just wash your feet, and let me show you what it means to be a servant. Let's go to look at some of the examples in the Old Testament. And he quoted one of the Old Testaments here. It's about someone raised their heel against Christ, and it's prophesied.
That's not clear about why Peter would say that. Well, I mean,
He didn't think,
he probably didn't even want him to wash his feet, because this is the Lord and Master.
right,
But then when he did, then he says, "Well, wash my hands."
my head and part of my, you just wash me all over.
Well, I think he was pretty much saying, well, I want to be fully with you, because he told him, first he said, you can't wash my feet, and then Jesus told him, well, if I can't wash you, I have a part in you. It's like, okay, well, wash all of me.
Yep,
I want to be a part of you.
I think that may be where he's coming from.
I think so too.
Yeah. Amy, do you have
Oh,
okay, all right. Yeah, he wanted to make sure that, hey, and then we know just shortly after this, what did Jesus tell him was going to happen? You're going to betray me 3 times. Or deny me 3 times. And Peter says, there's no way I'm going to do that. Peter had a lot of issues. We know that. But he had a lot of strength too. Man, we can pull a lot of strength from him. Let's go to Genesis 18. We're going to look at several different verses here. Was talking about washing feet. And it was in their culture, big time in their culture. Genesis 18:4. Someone read it for me. And I've got 4 or 5 here in Genesis that I want to look at.
Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree.
All right. This is Abraham when the angels came to him first. He said, and that was just a culture. That's something you did. They had bowls of water by their doors. Don't we have, a lot of us have little racks that some of us require people to take their shoes off before they come in the house. That's okay. I don't have no problem with that, because it saves a lot of cleaning later. So,
But if you're wearing sandals and you're walking through dusty, dry country, your feet are going to be bad.
think about walking through the Blacklands parts of Dallas. when it's a little muddy. And they had rain. They had to walk through rain. They had to walk through storms. They had to walk through streams. It doesn't take a whole lot to get a lot of mud on your feet. If you do that in Dallas, you're about 3 inches taller real quick because it just builds up, and you can't get it off. Yes, ma'am.
My mother was from a family of 10 kids, and my grandmother would, was barefooted whatever they done. And she'd say, "You better wash them feet before you go to bed."
Yeah, because you know it's going to get into bed. Or a lot of times they would have a water hose or a spigot by the door. You just rinse your feet off before you came in. They had a towel there. So I can remember that happening too. All right, this was when Abraham was going to wash the angel's feet. Turn to, we're still in Genesis 19:2, someone. Genesis 19:2.
And he said, "Behold, now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, to your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early, and go on your way. And they said, No, but we will abide in the street all night."
This was when the death angel, the angels came to Sodom. Lot told them, "Hey, come in and wash your feet. That's our custom. Just wash your feet, and then you can stay in the house." But they were there for a different reason. 24:32. Genesis 24:32.
When the man came to the house, and he unloaded the camels, and provided straw and feed for the camels, and water to wash his feet, and the feet of the men who were with him.
It was not just him. He was doing to make sure they had water for his servants that were with him too, also. And that was when, was it Jacob? I don't remember who this one was. Isaac, maybe Isaac when he's first meeting Rebecca. Okay, I knew it was one of them. I couldn't remember which one. All right, 43. Genesis 43:24.
So the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and they gave their donkeys feed.
All right, we know this was Joseph when he was receiving his brothers, right? That's, again, their custom. They washed their feet before they went into somebody's house. If you've got mud on your feet, do you just walk into somebody's house?
No.
I've seen people do it. I've seen people walk in restaurants. I've seen people, and you can just follow the tracks of mud and stuff that they've been out working. They didn't clean their feet off or stomp their feet off. I'm going, how hard would that have done to clean your feet off? Just take a minute or two. And again, it shows respect to people's property and people's homes when you do that. I respect the cleanliness of you. I respect you're fixing to feed me a meal. I come into your house. I want to clean my feet because they are so dirty. Last one I want to look at is 1 Samuel 25. 1 Samuel 25, verse 41. 1 Samuel 25 in verse 41.
And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord.
All right. She's given herself over. I will take the lowest possible job in your house. Just let me be part. I want to show you the respect that you should deserve. And again, I can't remember who this is about. Someone has a topic on that section. Abigail. That was Abigail. Okay. I couldn't remember exactly who it was. Who got the jobs of washing feet for people in their homes? Slaves a lot of times. Not everybody owns slaves. Usually the women or the young children. Now, it was also used as a punishment. If you had a certain status in the house and you did something wrong, what's the best way to punish you if you were a slave or a servant? Give you the lowest job I can possibly give you. I want to remind you of your status that you had in my household. You had this, but you didn't do your job. You did something that you shouldn't have done. So I'm going to punish you I'm not going to beat you. I'm not going to chain you. But your job now is going to be wash people's feet that come into my house. And they had to do that. Anybody want to volunteer for that job? Washing other people's feet. But yet Jesus is telling us here that that's the kind of idea of service that we should have toward each other. The service that we show those that need our help, even to the point of washing their feet if that's what we have to do. And that's difficult. You in the healthcare business, the nurses that have to deal with incredible things. Things that I've had to go through in my own life, things I've had to watch my wife go through. I don't know how you get through those sometimes.
It takes special people to be a nurse.
It does. And I know the doctor over here, I know you see at times, people that you probably don't want to deal with or don't want to, what are some of the things that you have run into, if you don't mind, if you can give us some examples, especially small children that are not cleaned or...
Were you talking to me?
No. To,
It's hard off the top of my head, but there's some bad odors. That's hard.
I can imagine. From parents and children, or just children themselves?
Just their life circumstances, and we just have to help them out.
Yeah,
I say, we've all been in nursing homes before,
sure.
and if you want to really see what it's like, go in there after hours, after all the bosses is gone home.
Yeah.
And like you said, you pick up some odors, and actually we heard somebody hollering down the hall. It was an old man, you could tell by his voice. He was hollering, "I need help! I need help down here."
Right.
There was 4 women sitting over there on the payroll, but they was playing a little game.
Right. And at times, if you've been in a nursing home, that's just what people do. They don't need anything. There's some of them that holler all the time, 24 hours a day. As long as they're awake, they're going to be saying things. And that's just because they've lost part of their mental capacities. They have. But yeah, you've been in hospitals, and nothing makes you madder if you're in there as a patient or someone close to you as a patient and you can't get the nurse to answer the light. I've had it on 15 minutes. There's something that we need, especially if you're bedridden and you can't get out of bed and you're supposed to either soil yourself or mess up the sheets or something. I need some help to get out, and you can't get anybody to help you. We've all been through those difficult
Some
times.
nursing homes are a lot better than others.
Sure.
But if you want to check out one that you may go, or you gonna send your family
Go
to,
after hours.
go in after all the bosses go home.
Yeah. And a lot of times they won't let you in that night either. Anyway.
Yeah, they lock the doors at a certain time.
Not where I've been.
As a teacher, sometimes we have children that come in that are in bad circumstances,
And
and they may not have
bad
running
circumstances,
water
yeah.
and that sort of thing, and you have to kind of teach them and their parents. You have to bring their parents
Right.
in. You pretty much have to teach them as well
It's some hygiene.
how to do good.
I've had high school
hygiene.
students that I have requested a key to the field house. The students didn't have any running water in their home. They have not had anybody to wash their clothes. And I have students that complained of the odor of the person they're sitting next to. And you can't get out, you can't get by it. You just can't. And I have had the key, and I'd say, can you show up at 7:30? I will let you in the field house. And I've talked with the coaches. I said, there will be nobody in there. I will let you shower. If you'll bring your clothes, we'll wash your clothes. And that's happened many times through my years of teaching. And that's a teenager that they really wanted to be right, but they had no way of doing it themselves. And that's heartbreaking. And I know Tammy has told me many times of small children that come up that she's had to set the mom down and tell her, this is your child. There are some things that you need to start doing as a mother. So, and if you need some help, we'll figure out a way to get you help. But Jesus is telling them, that is the whole idea of Christ. This whole point is to be in service of others.
Well, as I was saying, because the meat, that doesn't mean the young or whatever, it says the meat that put themselves down will inherit the earth.
Right.
They have to go to heaven, in other words.
I've had people that didn't have anything offer me everything they've got. Can I help you? What can we do? And they don't have anything to offer. And I know that. But they want to do their part. They want to. And there's other ways. It's not always money. It's just service and time, doing things, sitting and talking, whatever they can do. But Christ was trying to get in his disciples' head, don't be like these politicians that you've seen that he just talked about, thinking just because of where your status is, you're going to get things given to you. And unfortunately, our society has turned to a lot of that.
Amen.
I'm entitled to these things from everybody else. Yes, ma'am.
So I think Jesus is trying to get across the point that as Lord and Master, and I am willing to wash your feet to show you what a servant can do. And, you know, some of them probably wouldn't want to do that. But that's what he's trying to teach, is service.
What lesson had he taught them previously about if you did this for me, or you did it for them, you did it for me? Remember all the things he talked about? I was hungry. I was naked. I was in prison. I was in need. And you did these things for me without even really realizing it was for me, even though you were helping those individuals out. And then what did he turn around and say to those that did not turn their nose up? And we've all seen people turn their nose up to other people. That infuriates me to no end. Somebody that, and you know they really need. I have seen people that were beaten, left on the side of the road, on the sidewalk in places, and people just walk right over them and right by them. You see a lot more in cities because it occurs more in cities than it does around here. People just pass them by. Are we cautious? Sure, we're always cautious. But it's very, very difficult just to pass up somebody that you know is injured or hurt. I stop at every accident. If there's nobody there, I will stop at an accident in a heartbeat. Because if it happened to me, I would hope somebody had enough humility in themselves to help. Check on me. Am I hurt? Am I in need? And many times, I've watched a couple people die in accidents. But there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do. Come up on an accident one night, and Tammy and I were on our way home, and there was a car accident. I think they hit a cow in their car. It was out in the country. And the person got out of the car and went up on the side, kind of embankment, just sat down. About 15 minutes later, that person's dead from internal injuries we didn't know they had. And we were waiting on an ambulance to come. But, you know, I thought they were okay, but they were not. And they didn't make it. That's difficult to watch somebody die in front of you, but it happens. Be humble. Be a servant. And that's what the whole idea of being a Christian is in service. Any questions or any comments before we leave this part? Next week, we're going to talk about his betrayal and more into what happened and who betrayed him and the reasons for that betrayal. It had to happen, even though it was difficult to watch it go through. And if we were there, it's difficult for his disciples. Like Melanie said, they were still thinking that he was going to be an earthly king and make things great for them again. And that's not what he kept trying to tell them over and over and over. Yes, ma'am.
I just thought of this since we've been talking about nursing homes, but the stages of your life, all children really want from you is your love and your attention. But you think about them when they're older, all they want is your love and your attention.
Yep, you're right. Thank y'all very much. We'll see y'all this afternoon.